For today, we're celebrating the museum's acquisition of the Marty Stuart collection, Marty's entire collection of country music treasures. This is not any ordinary donation, mind you. Marty's collection, which he's amassed since he wrote that childhood essay more than 50 years ago, has grown to be more than 22,000 items, including 100-plus instruments, 1,000 stage costumes, and more than 50 original song manuscripts. All of these items from the world's largest private collection are now joining the world's largest public collection of country music objects.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Mississippian, Marty Stuart. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, Paul. How's things in the Magnolia State?
Everything is clicking, looks better than it ever has, and wait till tomorrow. If everything falls in place, it's going to be even better. It'll be better when the Philadelphia Place is another destination to, even more so with the museum. Look, Marty, thanks for joining me. First of all, this kind of took a lot of people by surprise because we didn't know this was happening. But this is big news. Your thoughts? How did this materialize, and what was the thought process of doing this?
Well, first of all, we've been working on this, for several months, and it was kept quiet because how things can get out of control and the talk can get away. But the idea was this: when the possibility came that the Country Music Hall of Fame would wrap its arms around the Congress of Country Music in Philadelphia as kind of a big brother shepherd presence, and the thing that blew my mind about it, they have never co-opted their brand to anybody since they chartered in the early 60s. But the fact that they saw what we're doing in Mississippi is kind of the homeland of, Jimmie Rodgers, where it all comes from. And when they started talking like that, I said, keep talking. And then we got around to the collection. As Kyle Young said in his opening remarks that I just heard on your show, they have the world's largest public collection. I have the world's largest private collection. Well, what that means in terms of running a facility, in Neshoba County, Mississippi, is about $250,000 plus a year for curation and to have these artifacts, properly done. So it became a possibility that we could combine collections, therefore that would take that burden off of the Congress of Country Music, and we could combine the collections, and not only when the Congress of Country Music is open, we would not only have access to my collection, but have access to the entire collection of the Country Music Hall of Fame to always keep things fresh, current, and moving in Philadelphia. And that was pretty compelling to me. And one of the things that helped bring it all home is the director, Kyle Young, is a Hattiesburg boy. And his lieutenant general is Ben Hall, who's from Oklahoma, Mississippi. It was, as they say, it was a God thing.
Let me say this, that if there's anybody in the organization anywhere on either sides that didn't like this deal, they probably thought, well, that's not fair. You're cheating. Guys from Hattiesburg. So,
well, the thing, about the only kind of deals that are worth being a part of these days for anybody is where everybody wins. The state of Mississippi has, the government in Mississippi has poured a lot of money into this project. They believe in it, and I don't want it to fail in any sense of the word. The people of Philadelphia have taken something that was such a foreign concept 10 years ago and embraced it. The communities gathered around it, and it became a shared vision and just the power of community coming together. So I want to ensure that this thing is successful, and to have the presence of the Country Music Hall of Fame in the state of Mississippi, specifically in Neshoba County, Mississippi. It's like bringing the Smithsonian to town.
Absolutely.
With a couple of Mississippi boys driving it. So
and also, Marty, you have to understand when we're doing this next interview 50 years from now, 60 years, 100 years from now, I mean, you really do have to think out in the future once we're gone. That lives on, and And it's powerful. Is this a short-term contract, long-term contract, or is there a time limit on it?
It's a long-term contract. It goes out into decades with renewable options, and so that was a big part of the thing. Like, well, boys, we can't do this and run away. You have to commit to this. No. The only comparable I can give you, Paul, in the state is I really like the arrangement, the Grammy Museum in North Mississippi on the campus of Delta State. You know, they're kind of shepherded by the Grammy Museum in L.A., and that's a good model. And this model, I think, will even be stronger potentially because of the country music ties, and because again, it's the land of Jimmie Rodgers. It's the Old Testament land, and that's the beauty of this to me.
That was going to be my next question. I was going to say the template has already been placed and set, and I wonder if they thought. Did you use that example with them, or was this part of their thinking also? I mean, Mississippi is above and beyond anybody else as far as the music is concerned, so they almost just did some of the groundwork for you.
Well, it was a good place to look. It truly was. But again, what made this one so, and I'm not sure about how the Grammys have. I know they're very protective and very selective about where they place their brand. But the fact that the Hall of Fame has never. I used to be the president there. So I know that the answer is no to just about everybody that comes and wants to collaborate or do anything at this level.
Right,
so the fact that
go ahead. I'm sorry.
The fact that they did. Well, I was just going to say the fact that they saw the beauty and the worth of what has been accomplished in Neshoba County, and they're here to help drive it home. That's a mighty statement in my mind.
What does this do as far as what is being planned, the time limit, and everything else as far as the museum in Philadelphia?
Of course, the Ellis Theater is open, running, and doing great business for the last year and a half. I think dust will start flying in Philadelphia on the remainder of this project probably by the end of this year. And I think we have every intention of opening somewhere along the way in 2026. Everybody is pretty much settled on the fact that there will be a ribbon cutting in 2026.
What's the time limit on moving all of those artifacts, all of your stuff, 22,000 there, or do you hold some back? Can they take 22,000?
Well, the thing about it is the artifacts were moved a couple of months ago from the warehouse in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And I have to be honest with you. My collection was stored in the old Coca-Cola bottling company in Philadelphia. And it was an okay location, way below curatorial standards. But every time I would hear, I'd be on the road and I'd hear of a hurricane coming through that part of the country,
Ooh.
or there were a lot of timbers, and so it was a kind of a nail biter. But the Hall of Fame came down in two climatized trucks and with white gloves on, and we did a Today Show interview Monday morning, and those things that I've just put my hands on and handled all these years, I couldn't touch them anymore unless I had on white gloves, and there was acid-free boxes and acid-free paper, and that's the way they deserve to be treated. So, it's a big load off of my mind in one sense that they're in a safe place now that's like a bunker. It's like Fort
legendary Marty Stuart is my guest this morning. Marty, you got to be like a kid in a candy store, because not only this, and you've got more confidence that those are going to be taken care of, and they're going to be seen by literally millions and millions of people over the years, but also thinking about, okay, now I could, once my museum is open, I can reach into there and bring some artifacts here and freshen things up. My question is, what's on your top 1, 2, or 3 list that you would like to have there on display in visitation rights from the Hall of Fame in Nashville?
Well, here's the truth. My collection, I think it was termed as some of the crown jewels of country music, from the foundational characters. But the truth of the matter is, as time goes on, a lot of people don't know who Jimmie Rodgers is. A lot of people don't know who Hank Williams is. but they do know who Chris Stapleton and Luke Bryan and Taylor Swift. I have none of those things in my collection, but the Hall of Fame is well stocked. So we have both sides, and a good example. Back to the Grammy Museum, when a lot of those exhibits, I know a Beatles exhibit rolled off the floor in L.A. Where did it go next? To the Mississippi Delta.
You are a great marketer. We got a break coming up here. You're a great marketer. I like the way you think on that one. I got a couple of other questions for you if you can hang on for a second. Marty Stuart, back with more coming up next. Gentlemen, Marty Stuart, my guest, and we thank him so very much. Marty, you still there, sir?
Yes, sir.
I love that song. How old is that?
I'm trying to remember the words to it.
Speaking of the fishing song on that one, my brother is one of your fans. I think he was up when you were at the Ozark Highlands Theater not that long ago, and took a picture with you and talked about fly fishing with you. But he said you guys put on a great show at the Ozarks Highland Theater. Was it Mountain View? I think it is in
Mountain View, Arkansas.
Yeah, beautiful.
The Folk Center. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yes, beautiful area there. All right. Last time you were on, I asked you what your first bit of collection was that started this, I'm not going to say hoarding, this collection that winds up at 22,000 plus. But here's a question for this time. What was your last piece? And again, the words last are a moving target with you. But what was the last thing you collected?
Well, I didn't actively collect it, but it found me. It was a pair of the old movie cowboy Gene Autry, a pair of his boots, beautiful boots from the 1940s, appeared on my table at the office maybe a month ago.
Yeah,
and it was great. And then I got a call from my buddy Mike Wolf, who has that show American Pickers. And he said, hey, I found a Hank Williams suit down in Alabama. I need you to come over and authenticate it. So I went down and saw Mike, and there it was. That's how these things happen. They just kind of appear.
Did you get some FaceTime on the show, or was it just behind the scenes?
No, it was just behind the scenes.
Wonder what that sucker's valued at.
Oh, man, I'm telling you.
One of the things that Kyle was mentioning during that celebration up there was some of the things that you had in your collection, and you were talking about Jimmie Rodgers. And what's the Jimmie Rodgers stuff that you have?
There's a guitar that lived in a storage bin in Houston, Texas, and all that humidity for years and years and years. A 1928 Martin guitar that found me probably 5 or 6 years ago. There is a briefcase that Johnny Cash gave me that says Jimmie Rodgers, San Antonio, Texas on the front. When he passed away in New York City after his recording session, Mrs. Rodgers instructed them to put, if you remember, his body was sent home on a train. And the briefcase had his songs in it from his recording session in his casket, and made the train ride home from New York City to Meridian. And I have his brakeman's lantern and one of his denim jumpers and 2 pair of his boots.
Jeez. How do you put a value on those things, though? Because some of this stuff is just priceless.
Well, it's hard. It's really hard because years ago, when a corner of the Hank Williams estate became available with his manuscripts, costumes, personal effects, and there was no comparables for country music treasures. And so we cobbled together somehow prices for these things based on rock and roll stars and, country music stars, same kind of caliber out there in the atmosphere. So, but now thanks to my collection and a few auctions that have happened down through there is actually a market and a value you can put on some of these artifacts. But they're truly priceless because you can't run out and find another one.
No.
You just can't.
When you look at the largest one that's taking up more space, do you have any vehicles or motorcycles or things like that?
I don't. Well, we have a bus. There's a fellow in Florida that bought us a night that obviously announced the Congress goes to. Beautiful. You can go online and see it. It's a 1957 flexible Starliner that is one of the most beautiful vehicles ever made, and that's what old country performers used to travel in at the beginning. And it's kind of our mascot bus up in Philadelphia, but it is. He probably spent $500,000 on that bus, and it's gorgeous.
What do you think about our fellow Mississippians, the ladies at Chapel Hearth? I think they performed at this get-together on Tuesday.
And Charlie Worsham, he's a North Mississippi boy.
That's right.
With them.
That's right.
I'm telling you, I love them. I loved them from the minute that I saw their song, Jolene, and I thought, I have to go see about this. And they played in the Neshoba County Fair, and I sent some spies out to see if they were as good as I thought they were, and everybody came and said they're awesome. So they've played the Ellis Theater. I had them on the Late Night Jam at the Ryman Auditorium last year. I think they're wonderful.
You know, you've been around long enough to see country music go through so many different phases, from the Outlaws to, you know, Ray Price to I mean, it's just a lot of different genres it's gone through. And everybody still says it's country music, and it's still changing a little bit. I mean, you turn on the radio today and you hear Chris Stapleton, you hear Teddy Swims, you hear Jelly Roll, and some people say, you know, it's hard to define.
Well, the walls have truly come down. It's pop culture now. And it's, you know, you'll see as many country stars on the red carpet in Hollywood as you do, you know, Hollywood stars. It's an empire now. But there's one area of country music, and I wore myself out kind of chasing things around for years, and at some point in your life, I had to draw a line in the dirt and say, who am I? Where do I come from? What do I want to be remembered for? And it's that kind of eternal zone, and that's the timeless end of country music. Trends will come and go, but the language of traditional country music and the things that are represented in my old collection, you know, that's the zone where I went and stood, and when I will come and go from here until further notice. And that's where I feel most at home.
But, Marty, don't you think just about everybody, certainly in your age group, and maybe even a little bit older or younger, either way, really have to have that same talk, come to Jesus talk about it? Even to the day when we were talking about the Outlaws, Waylon, and all of every generation probably has to come to that conclusion.
My standard comment about country music for years is that I don't care where you get on, whether it's Luke Bryan or Bill Monroe or Jimmie Rodgers. Just get in the bubble and start looking around, because you will find something that relates to your life. I've been there, done that, wisdom that doesn't point fingers. And somewhere along the way, you're going to run into the real deal, authenticity. And, you know, if you're looking for your authentic self, country music's a good place to kind of find it.
Well, man, you've been doing it for a long time, since you were a little kid. You would have been on America's Got Talent, or you would have been the winner on American Idol. I sit there and look at all of the people in Mississippi, and one of the others that you have some artifacts on is our guy from Sledge, Charlie Pride. And boy, you're talking about a glass ceiling. Well, look what Charlie Pride has done to the whole landscape of country music.
He's one of the all-time greats of American music, period. Mm-hmm. Just period. Mr. Pride, I loved him to pieces, and I miss Connie and I were talking this morning. An hour ago, so I sure do miss Charlie Pride. Yep. And Connie said, I do too. That's the real deal. Can I tell you my favorite, Paul, before we get off the air? Thank you for having me. Can I tell you my favorite moment of the day last Tuesday at the Country Music Hall?
Absolutely.
Kyle Young asked everybody from the state of Mississippi to stand and be recognized. And it was half the crowd. I'm honestly, the other half was hardcore, long, term industry people. And I made the statement, I've lived out of two families for 50 years, my music industry family and my Mississippi family. But half of that audience was Mississippi folks. And it really came to my heart in the middle of what I was talking about. Philadelphia and Mississippi, too, are responsible for so much country music. And it struck me that perhaps they have never been formally invited, the people of Mississippi, the Congress of Country Music in Philadelphia specifically, into the family of country music. And that happened at that ceremony the other day, and it was the most beautiful moment to my heart, other than seeing my mom still sitting there and Connie. and my loved ones, that was the moment that I took home with me is the most profound moment of the whole day.
Mm. When we started this off, that was my thoughts, too. I don't understand why this doesn't get more national attention, because it's as big as the Grammy in Cleveland, being the secondary place there. But, man, congratulations to you. It's onward and upward to here. And we look forward to the next interview when you say, come on by, we're having a grand opening, and maybe SuperTalk is going to be doing a day's broadcast at the new museum that's open. So let's get her done. Thank you, Marty.
You're invited, Paul. Thank you for your support.
Yeah. Be careful. 8:35, it's Nixon Williams, sports. We will talk about that coming up next.